And welcome back to part 35 of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, where today, after grinding out, we're finally going to start working our way towards Hojo's lab.
Cloud?
Huh?
You're Cloud, right? Holy shit! It's cool, bro. We went through training together. Damn! So you're still alive and kicking, huh? Some of the guys heard you got smoked, but I told them it was all bullshit. Hey, sit tight, man. I'm gonna go get Kunsel. I'll be right back.
Old buddy.
You okay?
Yeah,
But you were just...
I'm good. Let's keep moving.
That entire scene genuinely caught me by surprise when I first got to it. I was like, wait, hang on a minute. They're actually acknowledging that Cloud's like, you know, used to work for Shinra, so could be recognized. That's insane. And the best part is that they reference Kunsel, who's a Crisis Core character, and it's like, what the... Huh?
I trust the narrative is intact.
Rock solid. The people have embraced the Wutai Avalanche conspiracy wholeheartedly. I've almost come to believe it myself.
Wutai's response?
So far, nothing. And if those cowards do react, all the better for us and our story.
Very well. Then we shall stay the course.
If I may, sir. There was one other matter.
Oh?
A message from our man Palmer. Damn it!
Barrett.
God, imagine if Heidegger just happened to have peripheral, like, awareness and just saw us.
That's right.
Jeez. We were literally just standing there. You know, we hardly blend in, us three, with our weapons. Like, everyone else is like in like office gear, and we're just there strapped up with weapons and battle gear and everything else. Jeez. But we're on the 64th floor, so we're one floor short from Hojo's lab. But this is also the conference floor, so as you can see over there. Also, if you, no matter how hard you try, if you absolutely book it, the door just closes sooner.
What's the plan?
If you try and absolutely book it to get there before him, to like jump in the room and like spoil the moment, no. The door will close before you get there, so you have to actually find a way to sneak in and listen on the conversation.
Ask anyone here. They can point us
And yes, you need to find a way to listen in on that conversation, so we need to start looking around to try and find some way of getting into there. And we already been alluded to this. It's actually in the toilets. If you go to the bloke's toilets, there is a ventilation shaft in the ceiling. It won't let you go into girls. I found that kind of charming. But if you try to, Tifa's like, whoa, 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 what are you doing? I think it would have been more charming that if you kept on going back in, Tifa eventually would like punch you or something, but no.
You can't hang out
You go to go into the boys' one, and we say, no, Tifa, I know it's the boys' toilets, but come on.
But this is... Oh...
Yeah, now's not the time to be worrying about that kind of etiquette. I get it, but now is really not the time. Just come in.
Oh, thank God. No one...
And then eventually when you get in it, he was like, oh, thank God no one's here. Like, I don't think she'd be able to handle the personal humiliation of being caught in the boys' toilets. But here's the vent you're looking for. It's in the furthest one. And there's a little... This is a full cutscene per se, but I'm going to talk over it because it's just opening the vent and us climbing up. Because it's a bit too small for Barrett to easily get up, but Tifa and I can absolutely squeeze up and listen in, and then report back to him once we can.
Look.
As it is what Barrett goes to say there. He's like, I'm not going to fit in
Can
that.
I go with you?
So it's like we put Barrett just to kind of linger around and...
Yeah.
like just outside the toilets and not make it obvious that there's something going on in here, then we can use that to our advantage, just make sure we don't get caught up here. Like Barrett would just keep it on the door and deter people if needs be. This section is stupendously slow, and I kind of wish there was a way to speed it up, especially for repeated playthroughs, because you notice how slow this section is when you come back on a repeated playthrough. Additionally, deliberately gonna go the wrong way on both accounts, because I know on one of the routes there's a materia for your trouble, but I couldn't remember which one it is. So for the sake of just checking, I turn right here, even though you can see on the map it's the wrong way, solely to see if this is the wrong turn that leads to an item. It's not, so we have to hold back, which Cloud slowly kind of swivels on his access back around to it. Because I get what I do to camera angle this close. I think when the PC version comes out, someone will zoom out the camera in this section and you'll see his feet like clipping through everything. I think like the only reason you see the front half of his body is because the back half wasn't about to bend around the scenery. But you can listen in on any Great Ego bars, and it's entirely for world building. Because like you get these guys here where they haven't been able to contact people on the lower plate, because no one on the upper plate can contact anyone in the slums right now after the plate fell, because it damaged electronics and whatnot. So she's concerned that her family is in danger and may be dead after the plate fell. And if you proceed onwards, there'll be another one where it's a in-house meeting discussing how they're going to start working on repairs to the plate. Depending on the board's decision, we may start 2 projects simultaneously, rebuilding the plate and the city. So it's building the plate first of all, and then it's actually making civilization on top of it. Director Teresti, that is Reeves, is currently working up of it and doing the masterminding of the planning. And I feel kind of sorry for him, because imagine being the only person put in charge of managing the building process of an entire city. Because that's basically what he is. They gotta wait for him to come back and explain it to the rest of it, but he is the one that kind of has to mastermind it to begin with. Like, yikes. Rather him than me. I do feel for Reeves. Like I said, I mentioned the other part, Reeves is the one innocent guy stuck in the evil corporation, and even if you haven't played the original version and don't know the future parts, you might have already cottoned on what the purpose of Reeves as a character actually is. Barrett has gone on record of saying several times that regardless of your reasoning, if you work for evil, you are not without sin. If you work for evil, no matter how desperate of a situation you are in or how forced it is, if you work for evil, you are a part of that evil. Reeve being the one innocent person, the one dude with a moral compass who is doing everything in his power on the inside to try and change things, but can't risk it. His existence is there to challenge Barrett's ideology. And I've always enjoyed that. It's done a lot more in the original, because obviously the original covers the whole story. And so I expect to see it challenged more as the parts go on. But yeah, Barrett's ideology
This it?
is always directly challenged by Reeve's existence, because Reeve is the good guy in the bad company.
I'm telling you, I saw him. With my own eyes, sauntering down the corridor.
We don't have time for this nonsense.
He was as close to me as you are now. The shock of it made me spill my tea.
Enough already. If there are intruders in the building, my men will deal with them.
But, Mr. President, sir, I swear to you...
Reeve,
Sir, I have the damage assessment for Sector 7, and I'm afraid the figures are catastrophic.
spare us the doom and gloom. Was there anything else?
Well, sir, I've also drafted a
That will not be
reconstruction
needed.
plan for...
Not with the Ancient in our custody once more.
With respect, sir, I don't see how...
words, Reeve. Neo Midgar.
In their promised land, we will build a new Mako-powered metropolis.
Mr. President, we still don't know for sure that the Promised Land even...
Professor Hojo,
The test results were within expectations. The specimen is somewhat lacking compared to her pure-blood mother, but for our purposes, she should more than suffice.
so she can lead us to the Promised Land?
Well, Mr. President, that remains to be seen. I would like your permission to secure her cooperation through more forceful means. Forceful, yet gentle. She is a precious resource that must be handled with care.
Personally, I've never had a problem with torture.
My armory is at your disposal should you require anything.
I had something more psychological in mind. Better to scar the psyche than mar the flesh.
Proceed as you see fit. However, you will not make the same mistake twice. Is that clear?
If I may, Mr. President, I have an idea how we might mitigate the risks. Simply put, we could have the Ancient reproduce. In the absence of a second specimen, we would need to identify an alternative mate. I would start with candidates from Soldier. These would, of course, include S and G types. Quite frankly, there's no telling what kind of properties a crossbred specimen might possess. So, what say you all?
I like how even they're all creeped out by Hojo's shit.
If there is nothing else,
Mr. President!
meeting adjourned.
Please, sir!
Something stinks.
Anything?
The man in the lab coat. Head of R&D. We follow him.
Okay. And then we kill the son of a bitch.
Not until he's led us to Aerith. That's the plan.
Like, Hojo is so disgusting as a person. He's so awful and unredeemable as a person in the remake. Like I said, he was really bad in the original, but they really go out of their way to kind of hammer in he's the scum of the planet. He is awful. He is moralless. He is disgusting. He is evil.
Walking the halls of this very building, who would have believed it? I wonder... were I to arrange a face-to-face... how I should like to meet their offspring. But that can wait. First, we must have answers. A simple psychoactive agent should suffice. Nothing likely to cause any long-term damage.
Let's go.
Right.
And the thing is, the whole treat Aerith like a pet you're experimenting on and forced to reproduce shit, that was in the original. But in the original, instead of being told that, he literally put a lion in a lab in a like test tube with Aerith and said, okay, now they'll have at it and it'll be fine. And like it was kind of, it was still horrible, but it was kind of like you kind of looked at it and went, what the fuck, Hojo? Like you ended up laughing just at the ridiculousness of it, even though it was still awful, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does, and I'm not just sounding like a weirdo by saying that I ended up kind of tilting my head and grinning at how stupid it was in the original. Whilst in the remake, they don't do it that way, obviously. They make it more of just implied planning, and you said you see everyone else. You know, the people who a minute ago were, like, Palmer was giggling at the idea of psychological torture. Scarlet was being very open about torture. Heidegger was very open about letting the professor use any of his machine's weaponry. And yet the moment he says, I'm going to force breed the woman, everyone else goes, oh, because they know that's just horrible. That's evil. Like, even they are creeped out by Hojo and his lack of any glimmer of morality. That he is literally just the absolute incarnation of hell. He's evil to the ultimate degree. And I'm curious to see how further they will take that in future parts.
Don't move.
I ain't bluffing.
What is this?
A dozen bullets in your head, unless you open that door right now.
You must be the ones who've been stirring up trouble lately. The eco-terrorists? If so, I can't imagine what business you have with me. The president's upstairs. Go on, shoot.
Shut up. Keep walking. None of y'all better move a muscle.
Do stop pushing. Unlike you, I am less accustomed to physical violence.
You'll get used to it.
What is it that you want?
Our friend. She's in your lab.
Really?
Tell us where Aerith is.
Oh, so she's your friend. Well. In that case, yes, that might do the trick.
Mind speaking up some?
It's nothing. Just imagining how she might react if I were to present to her your fresh corpses. I promise, you will regret this.
But it's time for another entirely unique boss fight that is not in the original. This specimen, Hojo 512, I believe was actually just a normal enemy in the original game, and it's been upgraded to what you see now. Which isn't the first time it happened, and it's actually not the last. Even though there's not actually that much left of the game, there's still one more instance of a normal enemy being upgraded to boss. So we'll... Actually, I think it was a mini-boss that gets upgraded to a main boss even, but still the point stands. This is not the ultimate last upgrade, so to speak. There's still one more. But this fight, it's not too dissimilar strategy-wise to Abzu. It's just you got to be worried that this thing's a lot more grabby. But it is like it has minions that will, if you kill it, piss it off. It can upgrade its minions if it so chooses. Similar to how Abzu's minions got a bit stronger in the last phase of the second fight. It can drain. The only thing that's really unique about it, instead of leaving the arena like Abzu, it can drain from some of the tankers or tanks or whatever they're called. These giant test tube looking things around the arena, which doesn't give him health. It makes his attack stronger for a while when he does. So it's in your best interest to try and interrupt that as much as possible. Also similar to Abzu, he has body parts you can try and break off, as I just broke off the left claw, but they will regenerate over time. So if you break them, don't expect that to be it. He will grow them back. And so he's doing it right now. And there comes back the arm. And now we get introduced to the idea of that he can drain from his tanker to make himself stronger. This Cthulhu-looking motherfucker. And whilst we're pushing over this fight, there's something that I want to kind of say if you're new to Final Fantasy VII to know what to look for and know what the understanding is. If you've never played Final Fantasy VII and you're just going into this now, you probably still have the understanding that Sephiroth is the main big bad of the game. That he's the real threat, he's the ultimate villain, while Shinra is just an antagonistic force alongside it, but isn't the ultimate threat sort of thing. Well, technically, that's not entirely true. It's just that he's the most infamous one, and he's ultimately, in the original game, the final boss. He's where everything eventually leads to, if that makes sense. But, for a large stretch of the game, he's not the biggest big bad. He just becomes that in the final act, I'd say. Whilst in reality, I'd say that there's 3 main villains throughout the entire course of Final Fantasy VII. Arguably 4, but I'll get to that. The first is Hojo. Hojo is genuinely one of the main villains of this game and sticks out as a problem, as you already have kind of seen with how he is, more so than any other member of Shinra. He is almost an entirely central antagonist, and for his scientific research, is a very consistent threat, whether intentionally or not. We bump into, in the original game, a lot of his experiments and awfulness, and a lot of things that happened with the other 2 villains only got to the length they was because of Hojo's experimentation, making Hojo a very significant major threat and a large piece of why the story becomes what it does throughout its duration. The second's been teased at a couple of times, but I won't mention it until we get there. But it is something that of great significance and ties to Sephiroth. The third villain is when Sephiroth comes in, and we will deal with Sephi when he shows up properly, because we've seen him a lot of times, but never properly. It's almost like illusions or like weird dream states, like something's always been wrong. So when we actually see him properly, whenever that happens, then I'll talk about his villains. But the fourth, and the reason why I say the fourth is kind of a maybe, is that it's Shinra in its entirety. But once we leave Midgar, Shinra very much takes the back step for a lot of the main story. They're still present and they're still around, and you still bump into them a lot more, but they no longer become the absolute central focus, which is why I treat the entire corporation as more of like a sub-villain. As we enter the third phase, and he now starts powering up the minions. The powered up minions, you can already see it, will attempt to self-destruct a whole bunch of times. When they're powered up, their defense drastically drops, so you can kill them before they blow up. It's just, you know, all of them are trying to blow up, so good luck getting the positioning and timing in. Additionally, although this is the boss of this chapter, this isn't the final fight of this chapter, so although you can use a lot of your resources magic-wise in hard mode, don't burn through everything, because the fight that will immediately follow will become a lot more awkward because of it. But we are near the end of the chapter. It's kind of crazy that this chapter covers a lot of content in not too much time. When you consider the chapter starts, we're outside the Shinra building, and it ends and we're in Hojo's lab. You know, that's a long stretch. That's like the entire climb. And it's not actually like one of the longerest chapters. The very next chapter is the next chapter that I genuinely believe should have been split into 2 chapters. But that's not even then I say that, it's not necessarily because of its length, it's because of the severity of content and encounters that you go in there. You do a stupendous amount of major fights in the next chapter, as a forewarning. If you're going through hard mode, you should already expect this, but if you weren't necessarily paying attention to when the chapter cutoff points are, the next chapter starts after these next couple fights and doesn't end until every single boss fight in the Shinra HQ from this point onwards. That is, and I'm trying to be vague because I also don't want to spoil it, but just I'm trying to almost warn you if you're going into this and you weren't necessarily paying attention to how like chunky the next chapter is. It's going to be a huge test of resources in the next chapter to keep on top of everything. But our boss fight is done and over with. That fight, I tend to forget it exists when I return to this game. I don't find it's as good as some of the other fights. I don't think it's the weakest fight at all, but it's definitely one of the weaker ones in that sense.
Such invaluable combat data.
Cocky little egghead, ain't you?
The results provided by my predictive models indicate that this force should be more than capable of handling you.
Y'all about to learn predictable.
We're taking Aerith back.
Oh, take her back, you say? Correct me if I am wrong, but did the girl not come here of her own free will? Or do you mean to tell me that she is your personal property?
She only came here to save Marlene!
I'm afraid you misunderstand. But I really can't be bothered to explain. This facility is home to extraordinary specimens that will change the world as we know it. Do try to be considerate.
See, told you, we got another fight yet before we reach the end of the chapter. And the thing is, I didn't bother sitting on the bench. There's a bench right next to the lift that we took up. I forgot that the moment you press the button, it starts a cutscene of the whole journey. I thought you had to get in first, so I was going to press it and then sit on the bench, like because I thought it was going to cool it down or something. But no. So we're going up with all of what the state everyone was in from the end of the boss fight. So everyone's a little bit weaker, a little bit more wary, and all the troops up here are elite based, so you know they're a little bit extra and a bit more forceful. The elite riot trooper, think that huntsman we did at the end of chapter 2.
Looks like your models got it wrong.
Yes, an unknown variable, perhaps. Well, no matter. Reinforcements will soon arrive.
But will they get here in time to save you from me?
Why, are you a soldier?
Yeah.
No, not quite. Oh, now I recall. My memory was mistaken. My boy, you weren't a soldier.
What? What is this fascinating phenomenon? What's happening? Where are you taking me?
What are those things up to this time?
Cloud!
Barrett.
Got it. Stand back.
You came for me!
Yep.
You good? I'm great.
Thanks for saving Marlene. I owe you one.
Save it for later.
Man, those ghost things really didn't want Hojo to say whatever it was he was saying. But I chakra up, and these guys, they seem annoying at first because a lot of their attacks count as magic based, so you can't get the counter with Cloud. But they're really not too bad once you get the thing of them. They're just defensive. Once you get their health low enough, though, the suits will self-destruct and the man behind it will come out. And you know those shock troopers where they kind of roll around and dodge a lot of things, and I'd say your best bet to deal with them is to just counter them to death? It's basically a stronger version of them. It's the exact same kind of strategy though. So here's the ejects. Back away when they go to eject them, because that's huge blast radius. Is it like enhanced shock trooper? It's literally just a shock trooper with more health. And a little bit quicker and a couple extra attacks. But the strategy is identical. Just parry them to death. That chapter 1 strategy still applies all this time later, so use it. And I have Cloud use Assess now, so I can get both the enhanced troop and the armored troop. But you gotta see, by the time, whilst I'm trying to deal with this, the shock troop gets killed by the others. Or like it gets so close to low health, when it gets caught in this, it ends up kind of just dying out. I was like, oh, I didn't realize, I forgot that the shock troopers are that kind of weak. Like, it's dead. It just got caught up in Cloud's attack whilst he was attacking this thing. I've never actually got this thing's HP to 0 to see if you can destroy it before it does the eject. Or whether it comes up with like the block symbol and stops you from committing to it. But it'd be nice to try out. I might see if I can do that sometime just to see what happens. I feel like it will be the latter where it will just stop at 1 HP or something. But still, it'd be nice to know.
Aerith, you okay? Thank you. No biggie.
Let's get out of here.
hell's that thing?
We need to go. Aerith!
What the?
Come on.
What? You want to go?
Stop. This child's a friend.
So what the hell is it?
A fascinating question.
Oh, did it just talk?
You asked what it is. I am that which you see before you, nothing more. I'd appreciate it if we simply left it at that. Agreed?
13?
Red 13. The designation given to me by Hojo.
Then you must have another name. What is it?
He got away.
So, we're gonna go get the son of a bitch.
Together we will reclaim our world. They have come again.
You know, Reno, I think you might be due for some R&R.
Nah, I'm good.
What are we going to do about Sector 7?
We are going to do nothing.
Been thinking. Was all that necessary?
Had we refused, someone else would have completed the task. We have spared that someone the burden of a guilty conscience. Perhaps that will ease yours.
Yeah, nope.
Let's try another tack then. They were a sacrifice to balance the scales.
Say what?
After everything we'd taken from the planet, we were due to give something back.
Do you actually believe that?
Does it matter? Yes, understood. The VP needs us.
Cloud. Oh, thank goodness. You're awake. You okay?
Yeah. Where are we?
Where I lived when I was still a child.
Oh, there is a lot to unpack from what just happened. But you know when I was saying earlier about, the 3 big villains? We just saw villain number 2. That headless, alien, parasite-looking thing is known as Genova. And, Genova is one of the biggest things I cannot wait to see what happens with in future parts. I genuinely cannot wait to see what they do with Genova as it goes on.
Every morning, they'd come and take my mom away. I remember crying here alone.
Aerith, before we break out of here, talk to us. There's so much we don't know.
I'm a descendant of the ancients. That's pretty much it, really. Oh, but just so you know, that's not their actual name. They called themselves the Cetra.
We who were born of the planet, with her we speak, her flesh we shape. Unto her promised land shall we one day return. By her loving grace and providence, may we take our place in paradise.
You know it.
Yeah, well, honestly, I thought that part was just a fairy tale.
Shinra thinks it's true. They've been searching for the Promised Land for a long time.
And they must think you can lead them to it. Can you?
Nope. Someday, maybe, I'll find it in me. But now, not even if I wanted to.
Even if you could, that land belongs to to you and your people. Shinra's after it because they believe it's rich in Mako. Mako they've got no right to claim. But they'll try to take it anyway, won't they? Greedy bastards will never stop. Okay, new plan. Y'all take Aerith and get the hell out of here. Me, I'm gonna go bust some Shinra heads.
Barrett, wait. You can't do that.
Oh, great! These assholes again! Probably some Shinra science experiment.
Whispers. Perhaps best described as arbiters of fate. They are drawn to those who attempt to alter destiny's course and ensure they do not.
Like capital D? Destiny?
The flow of the great river that is the planet, from inception to oblivion.
And you're saying that that flow is somehow fixed?
Yes, for it is the will of the planet itself.
So if we're destined for a bleak future, these Whispers will try to keep us on that course? Now wait just a damn minute. How in the hell can you possibly know any of that? Spouting that cryptic stuff, which could all be bullshit. I mean, ain't you a Shinra lab rat or dog?
I'm not a rat dog. When Aerith reached out to me, I found this knowledge of the Whispers.
Listen to me. Please.
Aerith.
The Shinra Electric Power Company isn't the real enemy. It started with them, sure, but I promise you, there's a much bigger threat. I just want to do everything in my power to help. All of you. And the planet.
Aerith, what are you not telling us?
I'm lost in a maze, and every step is taking me further from the path. Every time the Whispers touch me, I lose something, a part of myself. Follow them, the yellow flowers.
It's okay. We'll find a way out together.
Okay.
Weird.
Aha! There you are. Rick, what are you doing, man? Hey guys, long time no see.
Wedge?
You're here?
You shouldn't be up and moving.
I'm feeling much better thanks to Elmira's cooking. But that's not what I wanted to talk to you about. Listen, any moment now...
What was that? An explosion?
HQ's running the show this time. They're raising hell to try and flush out the president. This complicates matters. That explosion just now put the whole building on high alert.
So now we're trapped in here?
No need to panic, little lady. See? You can still move freely within Hojo's laboratory. Find a way to the roof. An avalanche chopper will come to extract you.
HQ's bailing us out? I doubt it. Not after all the shit we've pulled.
I asked them really nicely. Like super duper nicely.
Thanks, Wedge.
Just get to the roof, okay?
I didn't ask him to do any of that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad he did.
I'm gonna still chew him out for it later.
Yeah, quite a lot gets dropped on you in a short space of time. We saw Genova, we got to catch up with the Turks. This wall holds a lot of teasers to the future. In the top left corner is an area that we'll get to hopefully in part 2, but it might be a part 3 location. But there's the etc. still there. Red 13 is aware of the spirit things, the whispers of fate, whilst Aerith seems to have a lot more direct affiliation with them. Like, now we know what those phantom things are. They are doing everything in their power to preserve fate. To give you an idea for context and why I actually don't hate it, because a lot of people were like, oh god, here we go. Their idea of fate is the original story of Final Fantasy VII. They are making sure the original story goes the way it is. They're a shoo-in for the fans. The Phantoms are a shoo-in. They are the fan reception of wanting the remake to be identical to the original. So they are doing everything in their power to fight against them. And every time they step in, it's because we're steering away from the original material. the moment you catch on to that, I was like, oh, okay, that's actually pretty clever, because it's not like we are defying fate, but you have no idea what fate's intended path is. If you played the original game, you have 110% knowledge of what the original intended path is. So anytime something strange happens, you know they're going to show up. You have context to everything that's happening already from the original game. But if you're playing new to the remake, yes, it will seem slightly stranger, but hopefully it will encourage you to try out the original, because it's available on like everything.
It stinks in here.
Yeah, I know it's a turn-based JRPG, whilst it's an action RPG, so it might be a harder sell to some people. But Final Fantasy VII is kind of infamous of being the JRPG that got people into JRPGs. The reason why it's one of the most beloved games of all time, and one of the most famous games of all time, it's because the game's brilliance, its ingenuity, its evolution on the genre as well. Because a lot of the things that 7 did are now standard in JRPGs, full stop. It set the stones in, it paved the path of JRPGs moving forward, in not just gameplay, but fashion of storytelling in JRPGs. Final Fantasy VII is the pioneer for why almost all of the JRPGs you might love today are even what they are. That's how significant the original 7 actually is. So I can say to a degree of confidence, even if you're not the biggest JRPG fan, give the original 7 a chance. Because although it's a little aged nowadays, it reinvented the wheel and developed a standard that's still used to this day for a reason. But I'm going to start wrapping it up here as we get this up, and this is a little humorous little moment where Barrett's like, yeah, shake on it, and Red's like, I'm a cat dog thing? What are you expecting me to do? Dink.
Shit, what the hell, Red?
And Red 13 isn't his actual name. He won't give us his actual name. Red 13 is just his experiment name, and so Red 13 is what he became. But just as I'm wrapping up, over here this door will open and there will be a shop and a bench to set on. That's because this door will open in New Game Plus, and that is where all the final like Colosseum fights will be in, and the last opportunity in New Game Plus that you can talk to Chadley, but it's not available in your first run. Anyway, next time on the VII Remake, we're going to try and get to the roof. But until then, you guys take care now. Peace.